Good morning, everybody. I'm going to call the Board of Trustees of the Town of Alliance Special Emergency Meeting to order on today, August 8th, 2024 at 10 a.m. Can we please have the roll call?
Yes. Mayor Rogan.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
Present.
Trustee Browning.
Present.
Trustee Hamrick.
Present.
Trustee Delvin. Trustee Lowell. Who am I missing?
Trustee Dottie.
And Trustee Dottie.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. The only thing on our agenda today is one general business item, discussion update on Stone Canyon hazards and emergency notification system.
Thank you. And you did say you will allow time for.
We will allow time for questions from the public, if you have them. So,
Okay.
take it away.
All right. First of all, good morning, and thanks everyone for taking time to be here this morning. We know it was kind of last minute, but with rain anticipated over the weekend, we wanted to really push out information to the public so that we can hopefully alleviate some concerns from folks, but more importantly, educate people on what they can now expect in the burn area above Stone Canyon. Also, we want to update you on the notification system in the case of any events in this area, just to again clarify what people can expect. So I want to definitely reiterate, there is not an imminent danger at this time. There's no reason to panic. This is a time to prepare and educate ourselves on what we can expect next. Okay. The other issue is that this is not about just this weekend. In talking with the professionals who deal with post-wildfire situations, we need to just be educated that for the next 1 to 3 years, every time it rains heavily, we need to be prepared that there could be different activity than we're used to. So this is just the first opportunity to kind of educate people on what we can expect and to prepare ourselves for the future as the earth heals itself and regrowth begins. So we're fortunate that the Stone Canyon fire was considered what they call a low intensity burn. Most of the fuels were low grasses and dead material on the ground instead of trees and larger vegetation and large amounts of structures. So it's called a low intensity burn, and they're hopeful that the vegetation will reappear in a shorter amount of time than a high intensity burn. Nonetheless, though, the ground is covered with ash, rocks, debris, and there are different levels of steepness in the Stone Canyon area. Some areas have very steep hills, others have rather wide open basins. And so we do expect there will be different behavior in those two different terrains. But we do need to just be fully aware that if it rains or when it rains heavily, which I'm sure it will sometime in the next year, the material that is on the ground will possibly dislodge and come downhill. So this update is not actually going to address the majority of the burn area. Today, I asked for the trustees and the people within the town limits and directly above it. We want to make sure you are being educated on what to expect from the town and in the neighborhood. The wider burn area is mostly in the county, and they will be educating in the county as well. So we did want to say that yesterday, the Boulder County Office of Disaster Management, several ditch companies, City of Longmont, and the National Weather Service got together to look at the forecast coming up and to start planning for what we might expect in this area. So we have with us today Shannon McVaney and Monica Weber, who are both disaster recovery coordinators for the county, and Michelle is recovery
Division manager.
division manager. So these individuals are providing us with information and resources to help us get prepared here. So Justin, if you are online, is he on there? Yeah. Are you able to show the area that we are talking about in this meeting, specifically the Stone Canyon drainage area, please?
Yeah, let me, Dolores, can you turn on the sharing?
There you go. I just want to make sure that people understand we're not representing the majority of the burn area.
Mhm.
So we are talking about, if you could use your mouse, yes. The area directly above the Stone Canyon subdivision, which would be that basin that he's circling, the west side of the burn area. Okay. As you can see, there are lots of topography changes in this, but nonetheless, from the top of the burn area to the bottom is all flowing to the south. Okay, does that make sense to folks? The road, would you circle Stone Canyon HOA, please? Okay, there's the HOA. And then the road directly above it is Eagle Ridge Road. Okay, so that's going to be important as we talk about kind of what we think flow behaviors might do. And then if you go a little closer into Stone Canyon so you can see the area between them right there. Those who live there are probably familiar that we have a swale between the roads up there. In doing some research, we call it a detention pond, but it was actually built as a water quality structure. But this is where we expect that the majority of rain, and if debris flow tops Eagle Ridge Road, we expect that it will go down through that area. Okay. So anyway, thank you. I wanted to just make sure we had that. Thank you, Justin.
Yep.
So yesterday, the National Weather Service will be the entity that is building the risk profile, is what it's called, following a fire. And they base that on several different factors. But based on their GIS modeling, and it's using satellite imaging only, they're not considering flash floods in this projection. They are saying that there is a high likelihood of 60 to 80% that a 1-inch rain in less than an hour will cause some debris flow in the actual burn scar area. In the Stone Canyon HOA area, which I'm calling the neighborhood within the town limits, the likelihood drops to 40 to 60% with a 1-inch rain in an hour. Okay, that's one of the factors we are considering here, just so that we are making plans. As you guys know, in disaster planning, you plan for the worst and hope for the best. So we're just getting the facts out there. But it would be the volume and the intensity of any rain event will determine if it isn't simply going to be a rain runoff or if it becomes a debris runoff. Okay, The higher the volume, the higher the intensity, the further debris will flow from the burn scar. So I asked to have this meeting just so we want to make sure that the public understands the behavior and that we can lessen impacts on people, property, and the environment, and be prepared for what may happen. So the county has information available, and the town's going to be posting that on our website. It's on theirs already. It's available at Town Hall if people want to pick it up. However, in this situation, it will be the National Weather Service that is the alerting authority. Okay, it is not going to be NOCO or BOCO or watch duty. It's going to be the National Weather Service that will be the alerting authority. So we are asking that anyone in the Stone Canyon area be sure to enroll and pay special attention to that National Weather System alerting system. Okay. If rainfall reaches an intensity such as what we saw yesterday, and we're going to explain that a little further, they have made a new polygon map to alert the people in that area, okay? But it doesn't necessarily mean, especially for the HOA residents that live at higher levels, that it doesn't mean you need to evacuate your home. Actually, in this event, it will alert you to move to higher ground or a higher level in your home. Okay, but as I said, the reaction will need to be different for those who are higher in the canyon than for those in the HOA. But it is really critical that everybody in each individual property understands what they should expect and have a plan for that. Every situation will be different. So I want to reiterate, in the HOA subdivision, most people will not have to probably do anything if you get that flash flood warning, but we want you to be aware. And the HOA, for the most part, is much higher than we would anticipate any rain levels events to hit. But we do not know right now what the impacts will be to the properties above the HOA subdivision and below it. Okay, and that's pretty much why we want everyone to have an awareness of their own unique circumstance. So if ash or debris flow breaches the Eagle Ridge Road that we pointed out earlier, we do believe that Stone Canyon HOA may see activity at the mouth of that detention pond. And the town will be responsible to make sure we go out after every rain event and remove that debris so that we don't create any kind of diversions or dams. Once it passes through the detention pond, it goes through a culvert under Stone Canyon Road, and then it goes over near the Northern Water Canal. From there, it does go down across and between the Farmette and the Shepherd property, where it makes its way to the supply ditch. So the ditch companies, the city of Longmont, Boulder County, all the other agencies are looking and investigating the conditions that may cause it to get to that point, just so again, we are prepared, but there's definitely more research needed on that. So right now, the latest update from the National Weather Service was given this morning, and they are saying that today we are going to have similar conditions to what we're experiencing right now for the remainder of the day. Rainfall rates won't be high enough for any impacts, so those are all good conditions for today. For tomorrow, they are anticipating a few degrees warmer than today. We may have a few storms in the afternoon. There is a very limited threat, but the Weather Service doesn't seem overly concerned. However, on Saturday and Sunday, the threat for storms will start to increase a bit. And Weather Service will be looking at the behavior over the burn scar more closely and keeping us updated. So we would anticipate more updates as we head into Saturday and Sunday. But for the next 2 days are 2 good days for planning and prep. If you would need to be moved to higher ground, where would that be? Again, during all flash flooding, you do not want to drive through roadways. You do not want to try to outrun a flash flooding event. You just need to move to higher ground. So we want to reiterate that for people who might be working outside their homes, cleaning up, to just be aware of conditions and your surroundings and to have a plan. And I think that's what I have right now. I believe Monica wanted to talk a little bit more about flash flooding and debris flow after wildfires.
Yeah.
So let you go.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Monica Weber, coordinator at Boulder Office of Disaster Management. In our non-disaster days, I work in community preparedness, education, and outreach. So that's why I'm here talking with you about these things. But to reiterate a lot of what Victoria said, just really underscoring that, also wanted to give some context on yesterday's flash flood warning and how that's going to work moving forward with National Weather Service. So at this point, we're being pretty conservative with those rainfall amounts because until we get more ground truthing on it, more eyes on it to see if debris is moving, they're keeping that number relatively low. And so yesterday, the reason that warning went out is because the rainfall that this storm had popped up right over the burn scar had hit that threshold of what they were seeing. Therefore, it went out. And again, rather be on that side of getting people the information, having it be nothing than gambling with it at this point. So that's something that they're going to continue to reevaluate after each rainfall that we have to see what's moving, what's not, and then they'll continue to work with their hydrologists, so subject matter experts, in just all of this that we're talking about and make sure that they can then update that so that we've got a good threshold going on, that people aren't getting warnings all the time for something that may not pose a threat to the community. Yesterday, there weren't any debris flow, no movement there, so that's just context to have around what the action has been lately. And then I'll kind of talk a little bit about the alert and warning piece again, just to underscore that National Weather Service is going to be the first form of notification that's going to come through either a weather radio if you have one, if you're listening to AM or FM, just traditional radio in your car, in your home, that will come through there as well through broadcast, and then traditional television that may broadcast across there as well. But your all hazards weather radio is your number one good bet to have to get that information. And then as Victoria mentioned, if things escalate, if operational staff from the sheriff's office on the ground out here or fire department see, we think there's a need to send out that climb to higher ground notice, that will then come through either BOCO alert, if you're signed up for that, please do if you're not, or if you would like to use an app, instead there's the Reachwell app that will get you all that same information that goes through BOCO alert, just in an app format. So your choice of which fits best with the information that you'd like to receive. And that climb to higher ground, as was mentioned, means you could be scrambling up a hillside, going to a higher level of the building that you're in, getting inside a building and going to that higher level. But just getting higher than your current location is going to put you in a better spot than staying low. And just remembering to stay out of canyons, ditches, streams, anything like that when we have those flash flood warnings in place. And another thing is just being aware of your surroundings. So knowing that all of this is technology based, that if you find that you're out and about and you see like there's water or debris coming my way or I see movement, take action to make sure to keep yourself safe if you're seeing that around you, whether you have an alert or not. So there's that piece of it. Again, the alerts that you'll get through BOCO alert will also indicate that climb to higher ground. That gives you the direction. For any other type of disaster, there'll always be some kind of directive given in those. Let's see what else I want to hit on. Educational materials, we have some here in the building. If you'd like some, they're also on our website as well and will be amplified out. But you can check that out at boulderodm.gov/preparedness. And then there's a page called the resource library, and that will give you this and any other kind of educational stuff if you'd like some relatively light reading to go through and get yourself prepped. And I think my last little bit about this is just with that flash flood warning, if those are in place, making sure that you've got everyone in your household accounted for, work with your neighbors, your support system to make sure that you are planning together and also thinking about animals as well. If you've got animals or livestock outside, where can they get to that is higher ground? You're not gonna bring, you know, the horse inside with you, but thinking about on your property or a neighbor's property, is there somewhere that you could go to get them to safety as well? So, I think that rounds out what I was gonna mention around this. And we'll circle back if there's other questions and things.
Yeah, the one other thing with the Reachwell app, if you do need those alerts in another language, Reachwell will translate to basically any language you can think of.
I think that's good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all your work. Thank you for being here this morning. We really, really appreciate it. And to staff, of course, as well, as always. So let's do this. Let's see if any of the trustees have questions. And once we do that, we'll open it up to the public in the room, see if you all have questions, and then we'll move online. I don't know how long you all have.
However long we're needed.
Thank you, thank you. So Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any questions?
The only question I've got is I have people contacting me from Larimer County, and where do they go, just so I can reach out to them, do you know that?
Yeah, so they've got, for like alerting purposes, there's NoCo.
It's
NoCo
no alert.
Yeah, so they can go there for alerting information, and then I believe, Shannon, you might know this too, but Larimer County's OEM.
Yeah, so we still have up on our website, we should still have a banner up that talks about the Stone Canyon fire, and below that, there's also a little clip about the Alexander Mountain fire.
Okay.
And that link will take them directly to the Larimer County page that's been produced for that fire specifically with information about resources. They also have a disaster assistance center up there, so easiest way right now to find it is to go to boulderodm.gov, look at the banner, and you can see a link to the Alexander Mountain fire and go there.
Yeah, Larimer County's website has a banner on top of all of their pages as well for Alexander Mountain. But yeah, their disaster assistance center is going, I think, tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday.
Thanks. That's it. Thank you. All right, Trustee Hamrick, do you have any questions?
I don't at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Browning?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Delman?
No questions, thanks.
I do have one question. I'm not sure if this team can answer it, but I've gotten quite a number of questions from the community about specifically how this runoff, including fire retardant, might affect the river and our ecosystems. And so if you don't have that information, is there a resource people can go to for that?
My team is currently working with our CSU extension in Boulder County to figure out, after every disaster, they normally put out an after the disaster guidebook that includes a bunch of information. But if there are any specific questions and you want me to track it down, just send it my way.
I will. Well, I can tell you them now, maybe that would be helpful. People generally want to know, is it safe for my kids to go play in the river after the runoff? How will it affect the wildlife, the fish, the birds, all that stuff?
I would say, one of the guidance pieces that we typically will give people around like post-flood things is stay out of any water as debris or other things flow down, just because it can be contaminated, especially if it's standing water like stream, creeks, rivers, that kind of thing, maybe less impact, but with things still coming down with rain, that'd be one where everyone can kind of take on or assume their own risk that they're comfortable with. I know for me, I would say, yeah, I'm probably not gonna go necessarily be in the water at this time until there's more information out, at least about like, what does that quality look like?
Yeah, Boulder County Public Health is working with the state on some of the contaminants that we normally see after wildfire, kind of to do an assessment of what is and isn't, before we put out further guidance, but generally after a fire. We do have some links on our recovery page that go through like fire suppressant, that slurry safety, kind of how you clean it up, what like what impacts to pets and children that would have, as well as depending on age of home, if it was destroyed, could be looking at asbestos, those types of things. And so want to make sure that we are putting out as much information as we can, but knowing that if the house was built like 10 years ago, then that's likely not going to be an issue with asbestos or lead-based paint or any of those things that you normally see in older homes.
Okay.
I think in Lions proper, we are not aware of any impacts at all from debris or other materials up until the October hole. There could be, but there's been no activity on the rest of the whole North St. Vrain or South St. Vrain.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think understanding the economic impact to your community with the activity that you have on the river, majority of that is, like she's saying, up further to the west. So understanding the basins and sharing,
Yeah.
this is definitely a basin that is further east. And where you see your normal fun summer activities like tubing, where majority of that occurs is still upstream from where you see
Yeah.
these types
Yes.
of impacts.
Thank you.
I would say if people are want to be cautious, I would, not be involved at the October, November hole, for those who know what that is here. But I think the rest of the river, that we have not heard of any impacts to the river.
Okay, thank you.
Probably the biggest concern I've got in that regard is slurry drops. There were slurry drops on this side of Eagle Ridge, on the north side of town, at least a couple, because the fire did barely come over the top of the ridge. But the slurry drops definitely came over the top of the ridge. Does that cause greater concern on the west side? In terms of houses, I think most of that is gonna come down into Stone Canyon, and most of it's about 2 miles up,
Yeah.
mile and a half up to 2 miles up from 66. But the slurry drops began 3/4 of a mile up from 66. And there were a lot of them, thank God. But yeah, that's the real concern, because it's, I've been at one house on Dakota Ridge side. That stuff is thick. What do we know about that?
Yeah, the resource that I would point you to is that fire suppressant safety link that we have. I can send it to you guys directly as well. Kind of goes through what's in it, what are the concerns, if you have it, kind of what you should, or how you can clean it safely without harming anything else in the environment. So I'll send you both that link as well. Thank you.
Okay, anybody in the room have any questions? If you do, you can just come up to the podium and state your name and address and ask your question.
I do. My name's Randall Burton, 127 Peregrine Lane. Thank you for this meeting. One thing I would like to bring up for notifications, I also like to listen to Boulder Sheriff and Fire. If you want real-time news, that's what I listen to all the time because they're right on the line. And second of all, the runoff issue. Or Stone Canyon proper, we do have the runoff dish that goes through in the open space. Is that what we're looking at for runoff and alerts, or can it come down anywhere?
I can speak to that. So we are at that predominant area that you're looking at is what we've been speaking about. It's that area that comes down into the mouth of Stone Canyon HOA. And as you travel up that canyon, you can see that the road, that private road, everything is sloping past that road and essentially into that drainage. Now, as you go up, there's a break between where the burn scar is and where that HOA starts. So you still have, you have prenup, you have growth in that area, and it definitely widens out. So there's some space between the HOA and the mouth of that drainage and where that burn scar is. But essentially you're looking at runoff to the, we'll say to the west side of that private road that runs up the canyon. And then of course, we talked yesterday about private driveways that come into that road and maybe some impacts to those private driveways that do or don't have culverts underneath to allow the water, and if there's larger debris, does it prevent debris from flowing and overtopping some of those driveways in that area. But we're predominantly looking at the west side to the south of where that burn scar is and how that will come down through that area. It widens out, it flattens out, you have vegetation between that area and the HOA.
So basically, for us who live in that open space, we're watching that runoff ditch pretty much because during the flood, it backed up quite a bit. And for those of us who stayed, we monitored the rise of the water, and that's what we should be paying attention to. Correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's right behind your house.
Yeah,
And if you look at what happened yesterday, that lower pathway was the only area that got a little bit flooded. It didn't come up anywhere near your direction, but right behind Chris's house, that's the area that.
the sidewalk comes across.
Right, yeah. We also do get a fair amount of drainage coming down Stone Canyon Drive itself.
That's right, yeah.
And that actually will run all the way down. Most of that will go into the sewers right in front of my house and straight to the river. So that I also noticed yesterday. We had a fair amount of that because a lot of that comes down Stone Canyon, down outside the town, the dirt road. A lot of it gets diverted into that culvert. But when it's a huge amount, it doesn't. It comes straight down.
It comes down on the pavement.
Comes down the pavement and actually will come down a big one. It will, I mean, it's been a problem for 17 years. It'll come down about 3 houses worth. And they keep digging troughs in there that get it a little more into the area, and it's pretty good this year. It's been pretty decent this year, but I didn't go out this morning to look to see what I did last night. But if we get a lot over the weekend, particularly Saturday, Sunday, that also would be a concern. And there you've got more direct access to the river.
And I imagine, so there's that row of houses there, just up to the east side of Stone Canyon Drive. So I imagine as you're describing, you're gonna get runoff. I don't see that being runoff from the burn scar because it's up higher. You're gonna see runoff from the bridge. But where the burn scar is, it's much further to the north and it's gonna come down through that drainage. You're still gonna get, I just imagine that's natural, like you're describing, you're getting that water runoff.
You will get it from the burn scar.
You will?
You will get it from the east side of the burn scar.
Okay,
Because the east side of the burn scar on Dakota Ridge is going to come down to the road.
you get that flow.
And when it comes to the road, it primarily is coming down Stone Canyon.
Okay.
So that would just be a bigger concern for going into the river.
There's a map, showing. Sorry about that.
And they did say, so the good news in this discussion, that eastern side, less rock, more vegetation on that side. Not to say that there's not gonna be impacts. It's more of the western slope facing to the east is where you have those bigger ridges and more rocks, less vegetation.
Yeah, and most of the area that's closer to Stone Canyon on the east side, that was fairly slow burn. And not many trees there at all, so yeah.
Thank you very much for that question. I appreciate it.
I'm Cindy Fisher, 125 Eagle Valley Drive. A couple of questions. You must have gone out to look at the low spot where it goes under the road too. I noticed, and I've never gone out because I've never been curious. We haven't had this kind of fire thing, but it was backed up and draining slow. And I didn't know if will the city clean that out occasionally so it works a little better?
Yeah,
Or are they wanting it to back up so it doesn't go into Hawkins?
We'll let Victoria answer that.
They were actually out there cleaning some of that this morning.
Okay.
And the staff said they were gonna be going back.
Yeah, we'll keep it. Thankfully, this was an area where the goats were recently,
Right,
so
yeah,
that
we
was
watched
helpful. Both Justin Doles, the town engineer, and Aaron Kaplan, utilities, have been out to that area. We know the capacity it can hold, and if that ever becomes a concern, we may do different activity up above it, but, Justin or Aaron, any comments you want to make about the detention pond and debris removal? I think as of right now, last night's event, even the small rain we had, there was about 6 inches of water in there this morning. So
Doesn't seem to be draining great. But there is a wall there. I mean, obviously it was meant to slow it down.
It's
because
meant
there's
to
kind of
slow
a-
it down
a wall
and
there.
help with water quality by absorbing
Right.
from there. In this case, it might work more as just a detention pond, and then it will move under the culvert.
And then culverts are another issue.
Yeah.
We have one in front of our house. I never pay attention to it, but my neighbor Cindy said that kids throw cans in there. So can you guys clean those out since we're expecting trouble? I mean, like, I didn't even look today because
Yeah.
it looks in a hole in front of your house. Right?
Yeah.
I did see about 4 cans down in the actual drainage, so they just came right through that those storms are big enough.
If it was like really bad, would it be a bad thing that kids throw cans in there? And maybe people who have kids could ask them to stop throwing cans in there until this
Rocks,
is over.
anything.
Or at all.
At all.
That would be great, but that's probably asking too much, because I don't know why anybody threw a bunch of cans in one of those things.
Thank you, Cindy. Any other in the room questions? No? Okay. Would you mind stopping screen sharing for a sec, Justin, so we can see the folks?
Yeah, and can Dolores stop the video for a moment on the board of trustees and reactivate it? It was working kind of stuttery and now it's like completely frozen.
Oh, sure.
I don't know if that'll help or not. Audio's been fine, so.
Okay, well, as long as the audio is good.
It's like it's still.
It's still frozen. Unfortunately, it's frozen on me. Well, we'll keep going and hope that it'll unfreeze while Dolores tries that. So if you're online and you have a question, if you could use the raise hand icon to let us know, then we'll call on you and you can ask your question. And that includes staff as well, just so everybody knows.
We had a hand up, but they took it down.
Lee, did you have a question? No? Okay. All right, well, I don't see anybody. Thank you all so much for coming out here and talking with us and taking questions from us in our community. We really appreciate the partnership and the support. So thank you.
We just really wanted to get it pushed out before the weekend in case there is heavy rain Saturday or Sunday, and then people don't know what is happening. So we just want to, again, prepare for your individual circumstance, know where you would go for higher ground if needed, and keep an eye on the weather.
Okay. I see there's actually someone with a hand up. Would you mind unmuting yourself, person with a hand up, and stating your name and address? Please keep your video camera off if you don't mind.
Yes, my name is Michael Newell. I live on 157 Stone Canyon Drive. I just wanted to, I'm like the second to last house in the neighborhood right on that Stone Canyon. I just want to revisit what Paul had asked earlier regarding that drainage and how it works coming down Stone Canyon. Coming when that transition between the Stone Canyon road that is not paved and privately maintained, and then how it interacts with the, with the concrete, or I should say asphalt surface of Stone Canyon Drive. That I've thought about this for years because I've noticed the same thing where like we get a lot of mud and a lot of debris coming down that little section of our road, the asphalt portion, when we get those large rains. And I look up a little further up and that road cut is pretty deep. I mean, it's probably 5 foot deep from the natural landscape as you go up the canyon, at least for in between the Schmidt property to the west and Boulder County open space to the east. And I keep coming back to that. Could any debris flow potentially get diverted if it was great enough and shift that down through Stone Canyon and along Stone Canyon Drive instead of down into the swale between, that goes through the Schmidt property before it hits the Stone Canyon HOA swale. I just look at that road cut. It's gotten so deep in that space between the Schmidt property and the Boulder County property to the east. So I guess that was just my continued question. There's not like really great on the edges of that road. There's not a real good. It doesn't appear to me. The edges it's not a real defined path and where that flow might go on either side of that road. So it just wants to come right down the center of it. So I guess, I don't know if I'm looking for reassurance or just bring some awareness to that situation, just a little bit more in addition to what Paula said. Thank you.
He lives right
Thank
in
you.
front of that area. It's
Yeah,
the second house, the Gregg house next to it. It gets pretty bad and has for a long time. Even comes down to the third house. It's not been quite as bad in the last year because the owner of the property immediately north has done a better job of moving it into the public.
So we will definitely take another look at this area based on just on, those who live in it and have that hands-on experience. What people should know is that Stone Canyon Road above the paved area is all privately maintained. It is not maintained by the county. And most of the properties up above are also privately owned, except for a little bit on the on the east side, which is owned by Boulder County Open Space.
And I think a lot of people, because the sign that says it's private is another mile up the road, I think a lot of people are under the assumption that from the end of the pavement up through where that sign was, it isn't there any longer, but that is county maintained. Of course, it's not.
It is not. So we have been in contact with the person that maintains the road. They're fully aware of the weather conditions that will create this to potentially have issues on the roadway, and they're prepared to clear it. Listening to some of the staff yesterday who work in more of the technical aspect of this, they said that many of the culverts above in the burn scar area are probably undersized for a 1 year or 1 inch rain event per hour, and it will go over their driveways and potentially over the road. So right now, they're fully aware that it's their responsibility to clear and maintain. We will work with Boulder County on, is there anything we could do possibly with like straw bales or something more at the transition point to keep it in the roadway instead of going into front yards. So let's take a look at that. Let us, today and tomorrow, see if we can get something out there that might prevent any, further damage.
Where the open space is on the east side, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because you have no control once it hits the road.
No.
They do a very good job of maintaining it.
Yes.
I will say, even though it is completely private.
Yeah. So just so everyone knows that the facts we're dealing with there with private property versus public.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for the thumbs up there. That's always nice to see. So Victoria, I imagine that John will be sending out kind of a recap of this. I don't know, we've never done this, so I don't know if it's possible, but it would be great to also include a link to the YouTube recording of this meeting for people who might like to watch it.
Okay.
If that's a possibility.
All right, we can certainly do that.
Thank you. Okay, anything else from any other trustees? Doesn't look like it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No. We are adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody.